Welcome back, everybody. This is another live update from the garage. I have an adapter for the mic. I'm hoping it works. We shall see. Hopes are not high. I still think I need to replace these lavalier mics with different ones. Just got back from another work trip, just a very short overnight kind of one. I'm kind of all over the place on the wings right now. There's several different things going on at once, and I'm kind of bouncing around, but it's all kind of tied together. The last video I showed everybody installing the bell cranks. I want to get those installed so I can get the push-pull tubes installed, or at least mocked up. They're not permanently installed. You don't want to install them until the ailerons are done, but I want to get them in place so I can just loosely bolt them to the bell crank and make sure that when I run the conduit and everything else, nothing gets in the way. I also still need to finish the aileron gap fairings and the flap brace. The reason I haven't finished them yet, they're all mocked up, they're painted or primed, they're ready to go. The downside is I was really hoping to be able to squeeze the rivets on them, or at least most of them. My rivet squeezer is not squeezing those dash 4 rivets satisfactorily. I suspect I probably need to bleed it again. That is a pain in the ass that I don't really want to get into right now. So I'm just going to suck it up and use the rivet gun and set all the rivets. I've intended to do that the last several mornings, but it was too early in the morning. I didn't want to wake people up, so I'll try and get to that here in just a little bit. Get those set and done. The dash 3 flush rivets that go between the gap seal and the skin of the wing, I think will be fine to squeeze. I don't think I'll have a problem setting those, so that'll be easy. So I want to get that done. I did start making the push-pull tubes. These are the ones that go from the bell crank to the ailerons. This is the part that, if anything's going to interfere with the conduit I'm running, it'll be this, and I think it's going to be all right. But you get one tube of this. I can't remember what the material size is. The plans call out what it is, and it tells you exactly what to cut the tube to. I want to say it was 23 and 13/16 of an inch or something. You definitely want to be very precise with your measurement. This ends up with these heim joints on the end, which give you adjustment, which is good because you want to be able to adjust the ailerons to neutral when you're all said and done. And there's a thing you put on the bell crank to rig it and all this other stuff. That's a later problem. I don't need to worry about any of that for right now. The way these get built, though, is you cut them to length, then you have these rod ends. I don't have any separate. I already put them all in, so I can't show you what they look like. But that blue line is where the end of it is. So it's a insert that goes inside the tube, and then it has this threaded rod welded on the end of it, or fabricated on the end of it. This is an extremely tight fit. What I ended up doing that helped a little bit was I took the rod ends before I put them in permanently, and I put them in my freezer. I let them sit in the freezer overnight, get good and cold, to try and shrink them up, make them as small as possible. The rod, or the tube itself, I just left in the garage. It's plenty warm out here. I could have hit it with the heat gun, but since this is powder coated, I really didn't want to risk bubbling the powder coating. So while that was freezing, I sprayed primer inside the tube and swirled it around like the directions call for. That's all good and done. I have now marked the end of where these are, so I know how much room I have to work with. The way you hold these in, and they're not going to come out, well, under normal use, they're not going to come out. They're pressed in pretty tight now. But you put a rivet in. One rivet here, and then 90 degrees you put another rivet in. The alternative method, they do tell you you can weld these. If I had a TIG welder, I might contemplate that because I think it'd be a much cleaner install. I'm not going to waste my time with that. I'm going to put the rivets in it. So putting these in the freezer, letting this get warm, helped a little bit. I was able to get them started. They needed some persuasion. I used my trusty walnut hardwood blocks I got laying around, drilled out some holes, put them over the inserts to protect them, and then gave it some persuasion with my 5-pound persuader over there. The tricky part to doing this, it would have been nicer if I could have squeezed them together with some sort of press. I don't have anything long enough to do that. The tricky part is you want to make sure that you don't put any sideways force on these, because you don't want to bend these threaded rods. But in the end, they're all in. They came out fine. So now I need to mark and drill holes to that extent. I don't have anything to mark and drill straight on tube, so I went and 3D printed myself a V drill guide. So I'm going to use that to mark and drill my holes so I get a nice straight hole through here. Like I said, I gotta do two. One close in and then 90 degrees off another one, and then I'll rivet those in place. I'll get to that probably after I get done with the other riveting stuff. We'll go back to voiceover Tim here in a minute and the high-speed footage, and hopefully you'll see all of that before I post this next video. But that's where we're at. Just going to try and get caught up on those things, get these things kind of squared away, and then I can get back to getting the conduit in, get the rest of my wire runs pulled that I'm going to do for right now, and we'll go from there. We'll see what I can get done before I leave again on Monday for a longer trip. I'm hoping to get all this small stuff done. I don't know that I'll get to building ailerons or flaps until after the next trip, but we'll see. If I can get a start on it, I will. But that's it. Rapidly approaching just little stuff on the wings, but these little things definitely take most of the time. Oh, before I go to voiceover mode and high speed mode, one other problem I ran into, and I'll take you guys off so I can show you, is the service bulletin kit that has these brackets, or these plates that go on the back side here. I haven't put this side in on the other wing yet, and I'm going to do things in a different order, because what I learned is if you put this hinge on first, you don't have a good way to get this rivet on the gap fairing in, and I'll show you what's going on. I'm gonna have to drill that out. I don't know if you can see it or not. Actually, I'll turn the light on and you can probably see it. This edge is so close to that you can't get a bucking bar on it or the rivet gun. So I'm gonna have to mess with that some more and see if I can get that better. On the other side, I'll put the gap fairing on first. That way I have plenty of room to get a bucking bar in there and throw that thing on. And then I'll put this kit in. Hindsight is everything. I didn't realize I was gonna have to do that, but it is what it is. This was designed to be a retrofit kit. When you retrofit it, you end up taking these brackets off completely, so I assume it's not really an issue for anybody else because those are already installed. Anyhow, let's get back at it. Alright, time for voiceover Tim part. So this starts off with me getting those rivets in the gap seal and the flap support. Pretty straightforward. This was actually pretty easy to rivet with the rivet gun. I've come a long way. I remember trying to do this same thing in the vertical with the ribs way back when to the spar, and it was a nightmare. I think I've gotten a little bit better at using the rivet gun and the bucking bar now, so I will eventually go bleed the squeezer again to see if I can get some of that strength back, but no matter what flat set I put on it, it just doesn't seem to have enough fast to squeeze a -4 rivet. So for now, I'll just keep using the rivet gun. So there I'm kind of showing you the length of the rivet that's going in that end one there. I think it was a -10. Pretty long rivet. Not the longest ones I'm going to try and set in this session. I thought it was at the time, but I was mistaken. Anyhow, just getting all of these set. There are a few different rivet lengths to be concerned with here. Most of the ones where they just go through the rear spar is a -4. Then if they go through a spar and a rib, it's a -5. And then obviously the doubler plates and all those thick mounting points there at the end, those were much, much thicker. I'll get you a close-up, real time with some audio. There you go. That is a set rivet. Check it with the gauge. Not quite there. One more little whack, check it again. Everything was good. And down the line we go. Just filling in the gaps from where the clecos were earlier. So now this is the left wing, and the aileron brackets are installed. The gap seal and the flap brace are permanently installed. I still need to do the skin rivets. I'll come back with the squeezer and get those later. Not terribly worried about them right now. So onto the right wing, getting the brackets lined up, final drilled, and I'm going to get the outboard one riveted in because I need it in place before I can put the gap seal in place, because it has a cutout that goes over it and you won't be able to get to the mounting rivets on that bracket. So there's definitely an order you want to do this. The plans tell you put the brackets on, and then the next step talks about the seal, the gap seal, and the flap brace, which would work just fine if it wasn't for that service bulletin that has you put that doubler on under the inboard bracket. Because of that, you really need to put that gap seal on first. When I did it on this side, worked out perfectly. I got the rivet on, and then I had no issue putting the inboard aileron bracket on. You'll see that here in just a minute. It worked way better. So on the other side, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I really don't want to drill out all of those rivets and take that aileron bracket off. So I may drill out that one messed up rivet and see if I can't get in there somehow, some way to get it to set without jacking up the manufacturer, or without jacking up the shop head side. Don't mind all the metal shavings on my shirt. I have extra foam, you can kind of see it there, underneath the leading edge of the wing where it sits in the cradle on both these wings right now. I shoved some extra pads under there just to make sure that when I was riveting this I wasn't causing any damage. I didn't figure I really would because I'm holding most of the force with the bucking bar, but I didn't want to take any chances since I don't have this laying on the worktop, which is what the plans tell you to do. But I figured it'd be real awkward to pull it out by myself, and I thought this would probably be fine. And I did lay down on the ground, which is why I got metal shavings everywhere, and lifted the wings up and inspected the leading edge just to make sure I wasn't causing any damage, and it's all fine. So gap seal's in place. Now I'm putting the bracket in. You saw me in there with an air tool before I moved the camera over. The gap seal just kind of rubs up against the edge of the bracket, that angle piece for the bracket, and I figured it would cause some wear over time, so I gave it just a little bit of clearance with the Scotch-Brite wheel. I had to do it on the other wing as well. This way they're not touching, they're not going to rub against each other, and I don't have to worry about one of them causing a crack or anything in the other one. So there I had to use a pair of pliers to reach in between the gap seal and the bracket to be able to install that rivet at the top of the skin there. I also had to go reference the service bulletin because these rivets are now a longer call out than what the plans call for, because you have those extra doublers on the back side. But it was all pretty straightforward. It worked out just fine. And now, same as you saw before, just finishing this up. We're going to cut that out. You don't need to watch me do it again. So onto those push-pull tubes. This is where some of the drama ensued. A little foreshadowing from earlier when I said I was going to rivet them like the plans call for. First things first, that V-block I 3D printed. I am currently 3D printing a second one because I realized real quick while drilling these that I really need to have it sitting in a V-block to hold the tube square, but I need to be able to have another one to drill through on the top. For this one, I didn't do it. It's not super critical. If they're not perfectly 90 degrees off, you just need to get 2 rivets in there to hold those from coming out. And the press fit is so tight, even without the rivets, I doubt they would ever come out. But so I got the holes drilled, or the first set of holes, and I decided to get the squeezer out and see if I could squeeze, or at least mostly squeeze, and set these rivets. And yeah, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but I'm going to slow it down here for you. Those rivets are -12 length. They are the longest rivets I've set yet. And that first one, I bent it over. So I figured I'd hold this one in nice and tight, go real slow, and maybe I won't mess this one up. And it's hard to see from this angle, but I bent that one over too. Yeah, not happy with myself there. So before I drill them out, since they're already in there and I already have the holes drilled, I don't want this thing moving around for the second set of holes. So I decided I'll go ahead and mark where the second set of holes needs to go, and I'll get them drilled. And I have another problem coming up. I haven't figured it out yet, but you'll see me looking at it here in a second. So there I have the calipers, and I'm marking the holes based on where the plans showed them, since it's actual size drawing. I figured it was easier than guessing on my own. So even though I bent over 2 of those rivets, I decided, you know what, maybe if I put the squeezer in the vise, hold it with that, and then I got both hands to hold the push-pull tube. Surely, if I go slow enough, which you can see I've put this in real time again, I can keep from bending this rivet over, and I'll get one to set. I was naively optimistic that that was going to work, and it did not. Hopefully you get a good shot of it here. You'll see it kind of twist on me in the end, and it's going to bend over too. There it goes. It popped on its own. So that is 3 bad rivets if you're counting. And now I'm looking at the bag of the -12 rivets that Vans gave me, and I'm about to count them, because you need 4 rivets per push-pull tube. And they only give you enough to screw up like 2 rivets. I no longer have enough. I can't do both tubes. I just barely have enough to fix the mistakes in this tube. So I didn't do it on camera, but here you'll see me I'll show you what I did do. I ended up using the rivet gun and a back riveting plate, and that actually worked really, really well. So now I got to do it to the rest. But rivets are on order. Live and learn. See y'all in the next one.